there are some storylines in there. It's not just gratuitous violence, gratuitous sex, gratuitous whatever. Hello and welcome to Tracy Momi Reads. I am back again with another video. Today I am going to be talking about a book by an author that I mentioned. I did a video a few weeks back about a series like in the romance genre, and books that I'd been reading over the summer, some guilty pleasures that I don't feel guilty about. One of the authors that I mentioned, I didn't talk a lot about her books because I had one that I knew I was going to be kind of reviewing at length. And that book is called Possess Me by Michelle Hurd. Possess Me by Michelle Hurd. Let me take a quick sidebar here. I mean, I know why, but it just has to be said. These romance authors kill me putting these like men like this on their book covers, no matter what the book is about, right? There's always going to be a man in like that's, has a little scruff, that has a little sex appeal. He's either going to be half naked or he's going to be in a suit, or, he's going to like be covered in tattoos or something. And I know that they're doing that because the demographic that they're appealing to, they're going to like be drawn, to those covers or whatever. So I get it. I really do. But it's just, it started to be overkill. I think I saw on one author's cover the same either stock photo or model that another author used. I mean, it was the exact same photo. So it was kind of disconcerting. You're like, wait a minute, because after a while, maybe they're going to run out of hot guys to put on their covers. I don't know. So anyway, this book is, it's in the romance genre, but I guess that like what they call the dark romance. It's a mafia romance book. Don't you dare. Don't say a word. Anyway, this particular book though, it was different in that from the ones that I've read. Right. This one was a little grittier in the beginning, right? This one was a little grittier in the beginning. So you have this guy, Alec. His dad, is in the mafia, and, him and his brother, that's what they're being groomed to do as well. Become a part of the family of gangsters and criminals or whatever. But they are given an assignment to go and kidnap the daughter of one of their rivals, I believe it is. And they're going to like use her for leverage, I guess, to get to this guy. And so they have word that she's going to be at this nightclub. So they're supposed to go there. It's supposed to be a quick snatch and grab type situation. And the thing that happens, so as they're preparing for that, then we get another point of view from the main female character in the story. Her name is Everly. Everly like lost her parents like in an accident, and she's using some of the insurance money to kind of travel to see the world. She's in her early 20s and kind of naive because I don't know, she's from some small town in America. But this story, I don't know if they're in Russia or if they're in Italy. I am not even sure. I didn't write it in my notes, but they're in another country. They're not in the United States. Like at the beginning of the story, when this stuff takes place. So she goes to this nightclub, and she wasn't able to get in because, there's a line, there's a bouncer and all this stuff. But this girl who is the target of, these brothers who they're going to kidnap, she sees her kind of like, I guess, hanging out or whatever by herself. And she like tells the bouncer to let her in because, she's big stuff at the club. And she kind of pulls her under her wing and lets her party with her and her friends that night. So she comes to her with a story that I was already side-eyeing, even though maybe it's plausible. And it's just, again, the naivete of some of these characters. she tells this girl that, you know, because the girl, Everly notices that this girl has security and these bodyguards and stuff. So she tells her and Everly go to the ladies' room, and she's like telling her that, you know, my dad's kind of a big deal and I got to have security, and I really want to go meet this guy, but I can't go because these, you know, the bodyguards are always around. So she convinces Everly to swap clothes with her, since they kind of favor each other, right? You know, enough to where if it's in a dark club, you may be mistaken for one another. Y'all already know where this is headed, right? So Everly does it because why wouldn't she? A host of reasons why I wouldn't have done it, but Everly does it. And she decides, you know, after a while that after the girl gets away and, you know, she ditches her bodyguards, and maybe she was actually going to meet a guy. I don't know. Or maybe the whole thing was a setup from the beginning. But like I said, you guessed it, after Everly sees that she gets away, you know, she decides like she's going to leave. And I don't know if the bodyguards, I can't remember if they confronted her and realized, oh my God, this isn't the right person or what. But she was able to leave the club. And that's when Alec and his brother see her, because someone has given them intel that, you know, the girl that you're looking for, what she's wearing. They're looking at what she's wearing, you know, as an indicator that's the right person. So they grab Everly. And they were in Russia because they quickly realized she has an American accent. She doesn't understand what they're saying in Russian. And they realize they have made a huge mistake that their father is not going to be happy about, because he's a bit of an asshole. I mean, you know, that's also, I guess, a requirement for being in the mafia in these stories. But before they could rectify the situation or even figure out what to do, a car slams into them and there's this accident, right? And that's where things kind of start to, I mean, the story just takes a different turn from where I thought it was going to go in the beginning. But another rival family has now got Alec and his brother, and Everly, she happens to be with them, so you're coming too. And this is where a trigger warning should have came in, because there was some serious torture involved with these young individuals. The people that ended up crashing into them, you know, and capturing them, took them somewhere and they were tortured, and I think they were there for like 3 months or something. And I don't know why they were there so long. I think that their father wouldn't negotiate. Like, you know, like he refused to give in to whatever these people wanted to get his sons back. Right. And so, anyway, it's a lot, right, that happens while they're there for like, you know, almost 3 months. And Alec and Everly, because he feels horrible that, you know, number one, not only did we kidnap the wrong person, now as a result of that, this innocent girl, you know, innocent in so many different ways, but the main way that she's innocent, she has nothing to do with this world, nothing to do with this mafia. Like the other girl, she would have just been a pawn, but that's why she has bodyguards. She's used to that lifestyle. She knows what the mafia life in that world is all about. This girl is from somewhere, small town America, and she's gotten herself, you know, into this situation. So he tried to be very protective of her while they were there and doing as much as he could. Like whenever, you know, they wanted to like torture or beat somebody, like he took her beatings, you know, so that they wouldn't, you know, she got punched and kicked around a bit, but he took the brunt of the things that they probably wanted to do to her, him and his brother. And they kept him and his brother separated too. That was the other thing. But eventually, you know, they are rescued by his dad, like way too late. But by this point, you know, him and Everly, they have like this bond, you know, that they a friendship and a little bit more, because again, you know, and this is a slight spoiler, but I feel like it has to be said for the next part of where I'm going. These sadistic bastards that you know, kidnapped them, Alec was telling them, like, because he didn't want them to find out anything about her or her background. He told them that she was his girlfriend. That's all they needed to know, right? So a couple of them, like, they didn't believe it, and they were like, well, do something that would make us believe that you're, you know, that's your girlfriend. So, you know, he kissed her. Like, he was like, I'm gonna kiss you now or whatever. And they were like, no, that's not enough. So, you know, They made him do what they made him do. And after they're rescued, his dad comes and he totally is like, no, she's not a part of our world. And, but Alec's like, we owe her, and his dad's like, we don't owe her shit. And they dispose of her, or so they think. But they don't, right? Not really. Not the way that they should have. And I don't know. It must have been 7 years, it's anywhere from 5 to 7 years have passed, right? And I don't know if y'all remember when I was telling you about this particular author, Michelle Hurd, like how a lot of her stories are tied together by this school called St. Monarchs. And that's where like all the kids of the bad people go to learn how to fight and kill and maim, right? So Alec goes to finish, because he was in that school, he was supposed to be going or whatever, but so he goes and he finishes that school, and he's devastated like about what happened with Everly, and he misses her, and and all the stuff. He's just, from all the torture and everything, he just has really lost his mind. Like, he's just now totally focused on being basically a robot or a killing machine or whatever they want him to be. Well, fast forward, I want to say maybe 7 years. I'm just going to say 7. I could be wrong. It could be 5. He gets an assignment where he has to go to the United States, and he's with another mafia guy. And he's going to be working under him. He's now the head of the Bratva, which is like the Russian mafia. And turns out, Everly didn't, like I said, she wasn't disposed of. She's very much alive and very much in the United States. And their paths cross. And I like how the author, even in a story like this, where you may look at these type of stories and think there's not a whole lot of substance, I do appreciate, because, the first thing one would think, oh, that's very convenient, they ended up in the same city. Well, yeah, because they had 3 months together and they would just talk about the most random stuff. And one of the things was, if you ever, could go anywhere in the world, where would you go? And, or to live or stay. And he said LA, he's from Russia. Like, he sees Hollywood, he sees the movies, the things, how LA is portrayed as the land of sunshine and beautiful women and all this stuff. Well, Everly, that's where she ended up going, because she didn't know what happened to him, or she thought he was back in Russia, so their paths cross. Well, Everly has a little surprise. She's not alone. She has a kid that belongs to Alec, from when, they had made them do what they did back in when they were, at the after they were kidnapped and were being tortured or whatever. So yeah, I feel like that in itself, while it seems a little contrived or whatever, I still think the way that the author wrote everything, it made for a good story. Some parts predictable, a lot of parts not. But it still, I felt like, was a good read, and it was something that, had you flipping the pages and trying to figure out what comes next. I mean, of course, the stories obviously are peppered with violence when you're talking about, the mafia and that. And Everly was trying to, like, she wanted no part. That whole thing after that, she was just horrified, and that's why she went to LA, because she's thinking, in her limited experience with these people, if it's the Russian mafia, they're in Russia. Like I'm safe here in LA, but it's going to remind me of Alec, but I don't have to worry about any of that. So for her to have come across him there was like, she lost her mind, and not in a good way initially. She was like, because she missed him, but at the same time, she knew that, oh, I'm going to get drugged back into that world, and people are always going to want to kill you, and what about my son, our son now, and that type of thing. So that's the only thing. But at the end of the day, it is a romance story, and which is par for the course in most romance books, when there is like some type of separation or some type of misunderstanding. it doesn't take much for the main characters to get back together because, I mean, after all, there's this undying love there, and you're not going to waste time dragging that out. I mean, they've already been separated for like 7 years. Like, what do you want from these people? So, because the way that it was kind of explained, it's like, well, now that people know she's alive and that her existence, she could be, or their child could be used as a pawn or whatever against him. So the idea is that you're safer with me. But I'm like, who gonna tell people about me? You know? So anyway, all of the men in these books, I find they're such like the epitome of like the most stereotypical idea that you could have of like an alpha male, hella possessive, and I think though the other thing that a lot of these books have, even though these men are so tough and they do all this stuff and they kill people and they want things when they want it and they're gonna make people bend to their will, including their women. In most of these romance stories, the men almost always end up groveling at the feet of these women, so there's a plus side to it, because as tough and as badass as they're supposed to be, at the end of the day, when they're going after these women, that those are the only people who can truly bring them to their knees, because they're always talking about, I wouldn't kneel before a man, but they kneel before these women, right? So like I said, it was just different from most of the other books that I've read in this genre, because most of the other books, it's they're like arranged marriages, and there's this friction where the woman does not want to be with this particular person, but it's an alliance for the families and that type of thing. But like I said, in this one, it was a little bit different how they got together and how they connected, and how she had nothing to do with that world. And I will say a couple of things. First of all, not only the thing about Saint Monarchs with Michelle Hurd's, stories, there are characters, because I've read quite a few of her stories now, and I was surprised to find out that, like, in one of the stories, I don't know if it was called Tears of Betrayal or what, but it was one of the Tears books. It's Tears of Betrayal, Tears of Salvation, something like that. But there was a character named Alexei. He has appeared in mostly all of her books in like the Saint Monarchs, or the Bratva type things. And in that book, Tears of Betrayal, that was like his story when he met his wife, and he was at his peak because he had just became head of the Bratva and all this kind of stuff. Well, he appears in this book as well in his 60s. So like we're now getting a new generation of people who are like these people's children and grandchildren from her first books, which is crazy to me because none of the books have dates in them, right? So you really don't know. Everything sounds like it could be present day. I mean, they have smartphones, they have computers, they have tech equipment. Like the way that the books read, they're very modern. So, and even with this book, it's not like futuristic. It's just like they're riding around in an SUV, you know what I'm saying? So it was interesting to me that a book that I'm sure she probably didn't even write 10 years ago, you read this book now and that guy has aged, and he's still around and kind of in the family. So I like finding those kind of Easter eggs, and because you're like, oh yeah, I remember that character. I thought I was going crazy at first, because when I was reading some of these books, I'm like, why is everybody's name Dante or Dimitri or Alexei but these have been all the same people the whole time. So I just thought that was just hilarious. And the other thing too, I will mention, now I know that, because I had some people say, oh, I don't know, I couldn't read those kind of books in the dark romance and all of that. I personally have not read, but I know that this exists in this world of these type of books. But specifically in the books that I've read, like even in the books through the characters' dialogue, the men that are in the book will say things like, you know, I would never force myself on a woman, you know, and even like in arranged marriages, if she's like, we're not consummating this marriage, and the guy's like, fine, whatever, you know, I have not read any books. Now there's one that I read. It was about human trafficking, but it was kind of more like they would have these auctions, but we never like, there was never a chapter like about what they were doing with these people. It was more people coming to rescue them and save them from their situations. So having said that, I personally have never read one of these books that had any type of sexual assault or rape situations. None of the books that I am recommending or reviewing or talking about on my channel have any of that. So, you know, and if I started reading a book like that, like I that would be a turnoff, and I wouldn't be able to finish a book like that, especially if we're not talking about like the next couple of chapters, they found the guy and they like dismembered him, because that's what would have to happen to keep my interest in it. But other than that, like, you know, like I said, I have not encountered any books like that, and probably won't, because I'm kind of sticking with the same, you know, authors, because they keep having books come out and they have so many books in their series, you know, and if I go and I'm reading those, I haven't started any new authors, is what I'm saying. Yeah, if you are looking, if you like romance books, but you also like, you know, action and drama and you know, people who kind of like blur the lines of right and wrong, because that's another thing she does in a lot of her books. Like, these guys are in the mafia, but they're mostly dealing in arms, right? Like they're moving guns, they have diamond mines and stuff like that. And when they deal with people who are doing the human trafficking, they like are going out to kill those people and free those women mostly, or little kids or girls or whatever. They don't do, none of the books that I've read have any drugs involved either. So it's weird, because it's dark in the sense that like of the possessiveness, and yes, there are some hella steamy scenes in most of these books, but it's all consensual between the main two characters, right? It's never gotten any, you know, crazier than that, you know? So, not that I'm trying to convince you. I mean, we all have what we like to read, or things that, you know, that we find interesting. And I find these stories interesting more than anything, because, you know, I'm a big fan of one of my favorite all-time movies is The Godfather. So The Godfather 1 and 2, I feel like that's just peak cinema, right? So and just, you know, movies in that vein, like Mobsters, you know, Goodfellas is another one of my faves. So
it's me. I'm the problem. It's definitely me.
So that's why I feel like maybe I've gravitated also to some of these books. And because, like I said, there are some storylines in there. It's not just gratuitous violence, gratuitous sex, gratuitous whatever. There's actually some decent storylines in some of these books. So again, if any of that sounds like something you'd be interested in, then I think Possess Me, which I guess is a part of the Corrupted Royals series that Michelle Hurd has, which this is the only one I've read. So I don't know. Most of the time what I do is I'll go look at the blurb, and if I can make the connection, or it sounds like, you know, a similar story, then I'll go ahead and I'll start it. I mean, some of the stuff I've passed on, because I'm like, that don't sound like anything I would want to read. But I actually give it a solid 4 stars for the genre and for the storyline and keeping my interest, and you know, the Easter eggs and just the things like that. I found it very enjoyable. And most of these stories are very short, so you could binge them in a day, you know, some of them, or within, you know, a day or two, depending on your schedule and if you're able to. Anyway, if you have read Possess Me, or a book similar, or any other books by Michelle Hurd that you may want to recommend, let me know in the comments. And make sure you also like this video, and go ahead and take this opportunity to subscribe to my channel and turn on that post notification bell. You guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you next week. Bye.